promised we'd start at around 1 o'clock, and we'd like to keep to that schedule, really to allow everybody to have a answer questions, make comments. As we have from 1 till 3, this is a much smaller audience than we had December 6th, at which point we had 120 people in the City Hall and talk about and give comments on the proposed use of the UAS. My name is Ernest Guzman. I work for the City Manager's Office, City of San Jose, and I am the staff person in the Neighborhoods Commission. And I want to thank all of you for coming this afternoon. And really looks like a good attendance on a Saturday afternoon when I know all of you would be running errands or relaxing. But this is an important issue for the city. So in a way, I'm not surprised that you're here to make your comments and reaction to the proposal for the potential use of the UAS in the city of San Jose. The reality is that this is the third in what will be 4 meetings that the Neighborhoods Commission, working in conjunction with the San Jose Police Department, is having to outreach to folks like yourselves in the city to gather information and making a series of potential recommendations to the Public Safety Committee of the City Council, and eventually from there to the Mayor and Council for potential action or not. So all of you should have grabbed materials when you came in. It's actually, several things are on the table. An agenda, which we post for everybody to see in the city this meeting. The PowerPoint presentation, which we'll be walking through here in a minute or so. And the first proposed series of recommendations that the San Jose Police Department has brought forth for comment. And it's been a very vigorous conversation that the community has been having with both the Neighborhoods Commission and with the police department. And in any good democracy, that's exactly what makes for a better product. So without further ado, I do want to say that among you are some of the Neighborhoods Commissioners who have come to observe and to take back your comments as they eventually in March start looking at a potential recommendation themselves that will accompany what the police department is going to be presenting. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Larry Ames, the chair of the commission, and I'll let him actually begin the meeting.
So, welcome, and glad you're coming here. Like you said, this is to discuss the unmanned aerial surveillance systems, to get public comment on it, to figure out what the rules and design guidelines for these things will be. The Neighborhoods Commission is hosting this. This is a special session for this. Like you said, we'll have another meeting in February. And then at our March 11th meeting, regular meeting of the Neighborhoods Commission, we will work on draft rules that we will then recommend to the City Council. The City Council is who makes the final decision, and then the police department works for that. I have with us here is Deputy Chief Dave Porter and Captain Specialist Operation Tim Porter. Also in the back is Jason Dwyer, Lieutenant of Bomb Squad, and Lenka Wright, Assistant Director of Communications. And they will give most of the presentation, and then we'll ask questions from the audience and take comments. The Neighborhoods Commissioners will consider all these comments and come up with some draft. By the way, let's have a show of hands of our other commissioners that are in the background there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A number of us there are 20 of us on the commission, and a number of them are here today. So, thank you, everybody.
I'd like to point out that we have Councilmember Jones is here as well. Thank you for being here, sir, in the back. And obviously, I was asked by one of the media outlets, kind of what is the purpose for doing that? That's to share information with all of you, which Captain Porter is going to do here in just a moment, to kind of give you an overview of what we at the police department are suggesting. The plan is that we'll have one more meeting in February, and then we will go back to the commission in March. And then probably go to one of the subcommittees for the council and eventually get back to the council members and the policymakers to determine if this is something that they want to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Captain Porter, who is in charge of our Special Operations Division that oversees the units who would be using this. Also in the back is one of our other deputy chiefs, Dave Knopf. So we're very glad that you're here and glad to hear your suggestions and input and answer some questions for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Captain Porter.
Okay, good afternoon. Like you said, the purpose of this meeting is to give you the background on our UAS. We're going to let you know how we want to use it by suggested policies and procedures. We definitely want your input, how you want it, if you do choose to use it in San Jose. And then at the end of this, we're free to discuss any policy procedures or general questions that you have. Go ahead. Okay, what we plan to acquire this to be used with our bomb unit, for our bomb unit. It's for safety of personnel and affected areas. So if I can explain that, if there's a suspicious package that might be a bomb, might be something, our bomb unit technicians usually use a robot to go up to it, it can manipulate it, it can view it, it can x-ray it, and everyone's at a safe distance. But we can't use a robot, then you have to put someone in a big suit and take the risk of maybe another in the suit. This is just another tool in the toolbox. If we can't get to a package, then you can use it to hover above, use the camera to look at it and get a live feed, and then maybe help determine it. Another suggestion or area with the bomb is we had an incident up on North 4th Street. A lot of times when you have a explosive material, it's called an in-field detonation. You cover it up, you blow it up, then you can clean up that you don't have to transport it on the street or anything like that. What you like to do is to make sure the area is clear when you detonate that item. And on this, someone accidentally, luckily, found a homeless person sleeping in the bushes. So this is something you can get up, cover the area, look around, hey, it's safe, let's go ahead and detonate the item. And then also, maybe a barricaded suspect, if you want to overview the area, someone's in the house, maybe with a weapon. And another thing is like there's an active shooter in school grounds or shopping mall or something, you can get that up and take a look around and formulate a plan before you move forward. And then I'd like to say we have not used this except to make sure the engine's working. So it's not been used in any field situation. This is Century Yield, you see 660 hex rotor. I want to really make this clear that any one of you can go buy this off the shelf at any place that sells a truck. It's 1.5 pounds, 3 feet wide, 1 feet tall. You'll see the picture in a minute. It has a GoPro camera that anyone or probably has. You can purchase that. And something that's really important, limited flying time. The best you're going to get out of the batteries now is 15 minutes. And if a wind is over 5 miles an hour, you can't operate this thing. This is how light it is. And there's a picture now. You can see the tape measure and then the electrical outlet in the back. And that's basically the entire thing right there. We can't add any weight to it. We can't do any modify it at all. That's a picture of the weight. So this proposal was in front of the Neighborhood Commission. We held our first meeting in December with over 100 people in attendance. And per day we'll have one more in February, like Ernie suggested. And the purpose is for tell you how we want to use it, and we want your input, how you think we should use it, if we should use it. So that's the importance of the give and take when we finish this presentation. Now, if you look there, when we get to March 11th, with the presentation of the Neighborhood Commission to recommend to that Public Safety Committee, that'll be a yes or no. If it's no, well, we end it there. If it's yes, we move on to if the Public Service Commission of PSFSS, it's either a yes or no. It's yes, we think it should go to City Council, or no, we don't think it should have it. And then on April 2015, at some point, that'll be in front of the City Council and the Mayor, and they'll make the decision on yes or no if we should use Suggested policy considerations, limited to very specific uses, and I mentioned those, bomb, maybe active shooter, some barricade, something that someone's life's in danger, possibly in danger. You read that, the 2 bullet points under there. And then all flights would have to be approved by a command officer, which is a lieutenant in rank. It would be logged and accounted for and subject to audit. And if I could explain this, whenever there's a situation where maybe we bring out a less lethal force, or we bring out the K9s or something like that, you tell dispatch, for the event we're using this. And so it'd be the same thing if the bomb unit brought this out and said, hey, I think we got to use this. They tell dispatch, for the event we're using the UAS. So it's really easy to audit. At the end of the year, you push a button, you can see how many times we used it and how we used it. So when it gets logged, it'd be the reason, location, flight time, who the pilot was, and who the authorized and commanded would be. And most likely, if the bomb unit was using it, Lieutenant Dwyer back there would be the one that would give permission to use it. And the flights would only be used for legitimate public safety missions, training. And I want to say, too, for training, we will only use it on city property. We're not going to go into the neighborhoods or something and use it. It will be used on city property. And then obviously demonstrations, if civic groups or neighborhood groups request a demonstration, maybe at some point we'll be able to do that, like our canines. Okay, it'll be distinctly marked. We haven't figured out how to do that. You saw the size of it. We can't put a big sign on there that says NC150117 or I'm not going to be able to fly it. It will not have, this is very important, the following capabilities. There's no weapons on it. There'll be no listening devices, no imagers that can see through walls, no identification devices, electronic noises. And I'll make this very clear, we do not plan on using this for any type of surveillance. These are the only specific missions that we're using. And then if we are approved, we'll have a 1-year test evaluation and then come back to the neighborhood commission or some entity in the city government. So no recording or collection of data. That means we're not going to film something and store it on a hard drive. It's only real-time downlink. So whoever the technician is, he's going to be looking at a TV and he's going to see there, nothing gets taped, nothing gets stored. It's just real-time downlink. No images, when we want to take pictures and take the pictures. It's just for them to look at it in a immediate time period. And when also, which is the FAA guideline, we will not fly this over crowds, because if the battery goes out or something happens, we don't want it to follow. Except if we're moving into a location, say there's a crowd, we can go with the crowd, but it's not going to ever hover and monitor any type of crowd. So we'll follow all FAA regulations and federal state laws, and this is really at its infancy period. There's not a whole lot out there now. And law enforcement and commercial pilots are begging for the FAA to start coming up with rules how to use this thing. You can only fly up to 400 feet. You can't fly 3 miles from the airport unless you get permission from the tower and not over crowds. And right now, commercial airline pilots are begging, like I said, the FAA to come up with more stringent uses for this because on a daily basis, almost commercial airline pilots are seeing it in the airspace. So it's very important that we want the FAA to come up with guidelines as soon as they can. If you're going to fly this, you have to obtain a certificate of authorization. That is what the FAA is still working on. So if you're going to use this thing, you basically have to be approved by the FAA. And only right now, if bomb technicians are maybe 1 or 2 would be able to fly this. No one in the department can go pick it up and fly it if they want to. The pilots provide specific training to how to fly it. And like I said, only by trained personnel. The legal implications, the Fourth Amendment search requirements are followed. That means there's not going to be
Well, depending on what the case law is in regard to this, we would follow any types of laws regarding that. Right now, we believe that, and we're looking into this, but we believe that these are exigent circumstances. When in the circumstances that we're talking about, where if there's a bomb or somebody's life is in danger, that we can fly it without having a warrant for those very specific needs. But it could be that in the future the courts decide that no, every time it goes up, there has to be some sort of a warrant requested. And I know that some of the policymakers have suggested that they would like warrants for surveillance of individual people. So that's a different situation than an exigency that we're talking about. But regardless, any type of warrant requirement that the courts are saying that we need, we'd absolutely follow those.
And if I can think of an analogy, is if you have to have a warrant if you do not have permission to enter somebody's residence, but if you're an officer walking up the door and you hear someone screaming for their life, well, it's an exigent circumstance and you can force the door open. So if we were going to use it, it would be like you mentioned, an active shooter or something in that somebody's life is possibly in danger. That's why we would need a warrant. But like I said, we don't plan on following people around with this right now. We're using it for any type of surveillance. And at this point, then we'll take questions and any other type of comments.
You have the police department and the sheriff department have the helicopter. And does it have the same restrictions? I'm trying to find out why there's so many restrictions put on this device versus the exact same things happening with the police helicopter. Why are there so many restrictions?
Well, the police helicopter has to maintain, 800 to 1,000.
I don't mean I was talking about looking, when it's actually viewing. It seems like this seems more restrictive than the police helicopter.
Well, because it can enter buildings, it can go inside things, it can go right on top of things. When they're a helicopter, it's very hard to see things.
And
Think about that.
actually, there's a whole lot more going on with drones as well. I mean, every time that we turn around, there's another article concerning UAVs, UASs. And, there's a lot of pressure right now on the FAA, as Captain Porter was talking about, in regard to making sure that they're not interfering with aircraft and in the airspace. And really, the FAA's main job is to ensure that the airspace is clear and controlled. When you're in a helicopter, there's pilots in that helicopter that understand all of those rules and are making sure that that aircraft is not in interference with anything else. And a lot of the articles that we read where we're talking about that there are issues with the UAS up in the airspace, it's not government UAS, it's all of the private UAS. I was at a football field the other day with my son. We were running around the track and somebody had a UAS up there that they were flying around. So that's part of the issue. The other issue is that private industry really wants to start testing and using these to deliver packages and those kinds of things. So that's a huge push. It really has nothing to do with the government. And because of all of these issues, we're ahead of where that regulation comes from right now. Whereas helicopters, we know what those regulations are. So that's the difference between these. And really right now, the FAA has not even decided exactly what is the regulation, what will the rules be. When we talk about our bomb technicians will be the ones who pilot this, the FAA is debating. Do these people need to have pilot licenses? Do they just train themselves? Do they go to the people who sell these to train? That's when I was at the football field, that's what they were doing. It was a father and son that were out there playing with this thing, just trying to figure out how to fly this around. So those things have not been figured out yet. 2015 is when the FAA is supposed to come out with some types of regulations. But the FAA really is just, like I said, regulating the airspace. And there's been a lot of questions about, well, who's going to go after people if they're violating these things? And there's a question about that too. I read an article recently that the FAA was suggesting that local law enforcement do that. Well, from my local law enforcement perspective, I don't have enough people to do the things that we need to be doing now, much less going out, because I was at this football field the other day, and perhaps is that a violation of some FAA regulation? So there's a whole lot about this that we're really kind of on the cutting edge. I imagine that in 5 years, not because of the government, because we know that any time that business is involved and there's an opportunity to make money, there's a huge push from all of those groups for the FAA to figure this out, because they want that ability to get to the next step. I would imagine that in the next 5 years, we'll be really far into this, and there will be regulations surrounding all of this. It's just that right now, we're kind of ahead.
I'm going to recognize folks, but there's about 4 or 5 chairs up here for those in the back if you'd like to grab them. And we have some extra chairs we can put out here, so more than welcome to walk right up here. Gentlemen in the hat first, and then I have someone in the back.
I have maybe a twofold question. I'm a little confused by your comment that you only be able to use this for real time. So in other words, say you're using this for some surveillance or something, and there's a crime in process, in progress. It's filmed. You're saying you can't use that footage to download and use it as evidence for something? It's kind of confusing.
Well, we're not going to follow anything with it. I mean, we're not going to do
No, but I mean, if you see, for whatever reason, there's a, you video a crime in progress, and you have that evidence, I assume you're going to use that. You can download it and save it, right?
we could have the capacity to do that. We're choosing not to right now because we want to just take baby steps on this.
Okay.
And then if we did, we'd have to come back to the city government and explain why we would want to do that. But if somebody saw a crime on the, well, the person, the operator, is just going to have to write some notes down. At this
And
point,
then you have to delete it after.
it's not recorded, so there's nothing to delete.
We're not live streaming.
Oh, okay, so I mean, okay, well, anyway, so that's my question. The second point was, do you envision kind of using these to, and you mentioned about the staffing shortage, and we've all read about that in the news ad nauseum, but will this help to alleviate a lot of that staff shortage by using maybe a lot of these, or what?
There would be specific times, like I mentioned, when they were covering an area to make sure it was free of any individuals. That makes save some time instead of 5 or 6 officers searching areas. Put that in the air, go around, and say, okay, it's clear, or we didn't see anything. It would help in that.
So, and if I could just add to that too. In regard to the first question, if we'd see a crime, I just kind of want to explain how this would work. Right now, if we have a device that we think is an explosive, so that would be one type of user. Or if we have a situation where it's a tactical situation where we have an active shooter or some sort of hostage situation. What happens is we roll the bomb unit out to that. So it's already a situation that's occurring. It's not something we're out looking for. It's happening. Patrol officers go to the situation, they call the SWAT team and the bomb unit who all kind of goes together, and they say, hey, we have this issue and we need you here. That unit then goes out to that. In the case of a bomb situation, then, in our suggested use, the bomb technicians will put it up, fly over that device, and look at it in real time, not recording any of this. The second would be if we had that situation where somebody's life is in danger. Same thing, they go there, they put it up, and they look at it. So your question to if on view to crime, it's not like it's going to be out there flying around. It's only if it's called to these 2 specific circumstances that it would be flying. So there really wouldn't be an opportunity for it to on view this crime. And then secondly, I heard somebody in the back say, well, why aren't you keeping that recorded? And this was a question at the last meeting. Part of the concern that we've heard from the public and other people is that we're going to use this to spy on people. We're going to have these recordings, and what are we going to do with these recordings? As a result of that, we have made the determination with the police department that we don't need that. So why not just let's alleviate that concern and not record this. We just want to use it for real-time download. Now, at the last time the question was, well, yeah, but if you have this explosive device and you could record that, or you could help you in training, wouldn't that recording help you later on? Well, yes, it would. But as we go into this for our pilot, we're not going to use it for that. And then if we decide that, you know what really would help us, we can come back and say, now we want to use it for the recording. But the reason we decided to do that was to take away and alleviate some of the concern that people have about privacy issues. So that's why we made that determination, based on input that we were having from some of the community.
Gentleman in the back, Moses, and then Judy.
Real quick, from a technical point of view, what is the resolution of the GoPro camera you're using? Is it 1080i or is it 4K? Or is it just?
So our sergeant that's been with us the last couple times, he couldn't be here today. He's our expert on exactly how much it is. We think it's 1080i, but not positive. It's just a regular GoPro, and I don't know if the GoPros have different levels.
There are. Second part of that is, what's the operational range of the aircraft away from the control point?
The battery goes from 8 minutes to 15 minutes.
But how far away can the aircraft get away from your control point?
Well, we are not going to fly it unless it's line of sight. So but we haven't experimented enough to know that, to how far it can go. But the operator has to be able to see that thing. If he can't see it, he has to bring it back.
Moses?
15 minutes is the amount of time that you can operate.
Yeah, usually. But batteries aren't always active.
Okay, I think, is that enough time?
Well, we can bring it back and exchange the battery and go back. And the specific use we're really looking at right now is being close enough to a package to go take a look and hover and bring it back. And battery life will get better in the future, but that's the limitations we have right now.
What about crime and progress?
I'm sorry?
Crime and progress.
Well,
If you have a situation where there is a bomb, there is no real movement or action right there.
correct.
But if you have a crime and progress, it could be a lot of extra time needed. So, and you say that you could have a backup system to operate at the same time. So the 15 minutes is not going to be 15 minutes, but you might have 30 minutes. Would it be better to have another drone with it?
If we would still be in the same, well, we got one now, we're just going to go with one, and we have enough parts to replace it.
Because I'm talking about time limits.
Well, that's something that we're going to have to use it to see. We've never used it before. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're saying we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Fine-tune the system.
Yeah, we haven't even used it for one event yet. I understand what you're saying.
And 15 minutes to me doesn't seem like a long time to record something.
During the pilot, I mean, it might be that you're exactly right. I mean, we might need more time. That might be one of the suggestions that we come back and say, we've used it in 3 incidents this year. We've used it in 10 incidents, or we've used it in 1 incident. And in 2 of those, we found that the 15 minutes on the actual incident, that wasn't enough. And so, what do we suggest? Okay, well, now we think we need a second one. Or, this is also very new technology. Like Captain Porter's saying, it's like with anything, with different devices we've learned with our cell phones. So when we first had these things, the batteries died really quick, right? Now they've improved that technology. So it could be that through our pilot we say that 15 minutes isn't enough. But right now, the device we have is the battery life is only anticipated to be about 15 minutes.
And then this lady right here.
I guess and it's kind of bears out from what I'm hearing here, is my biggest concern has been mission creep. It's one thing to go be checking out a bomb and, saving people from that eventuality. But then people bring it in, well, what if there's a crime in progress? Well, we're talking about looking at a bomb, and then now we're talking, well, why aren't we recording? I guess when I look at it, I worry that we might be looking forward at something where it could end up being close to the surveillance that people might be worried about. And one of the biggest things that my parents raised me to believe is that living in America is that when you freely walk around the streets, you don't have a military person at the corner asking you to show your papers. And in that same line, I don't expect my police department to be the military because the enemy is different. And so I would just urge a lot of caution, even Captain Porter, as you mentioned something, he said, well, right now at the end of saying, well, bombs or hostage situations, but, you kind of maybe just casually ended your sentence that way, but you just said something that made red lights kind of go off in my head. And I just urge a lot of caution that we don't start infringing on our residents and our citizens in taking care of the issues that you're looking to take care of. And I've come a long way from, from signing the petition that said get the drone out of my city. Thank you.
Well, I understand, I agree with you. That's why we have specific policies that we're proposing and getting input from the community to avoid that mission creep. And having command officers and professional bomb technicians know what the mission is. No one is going to say, hey, let's try this. We're not going to do it. And that's why everything's going to be cataloged and saved for the end of the pilot. We can see, we might use it like the chief said one time, we might use it 12 times, we don't know. But that's why we have those guidelines in place, and if there's anything we want to change, we have to go back to the city and give them our proposals and why we want to do it. So that, and like when you're pilot, we wanted to be very, very specific.
And I'll just say that the tall man back there in the uniform, Lieutenant Dwyer, is one of our sharpest command officers we have, and he very much understands that if this is approved, these are the 2 times that you can use it. He's not going to allow it to be used for any other purposes other than those 2 that we have suggested.
Okay, ma'am, and then the gentleman over here, and then right there. Oh, at least a small line.
It says that it would be approved by, I'm sorry, I have 2 questions. It says approved by a commanding officer. How many commanding officers do you guys have?
Well, we would make it, we have what, how many people?
I have 16 lieutenants in patrol, then I have several special operations lieutenants, and then we have several lieutenants in the Bureau of Investigation. But really, this would fall to the lieutenant that is in charge of our special operations unit, which is just one.
And if he is not here, then we defer to another. It wouldn't be any lieutenant just deciding not to use this.
And also, have you guys considered alleviating some of the people's concerns about, privacy concerns by adding the option of live streaming the footage and see that you guys have? That you guys looked at?
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Live streaming, have you guys considered the option of live streaming it? Since it would alleviate public concern.
Live streaming it to who?
Well, just having it live streamed for public.
Oh, no, it's going to be only on the signal that goes to one.
The only one for.
Yes.
Okay, I just thought it would be, it would help alleviate concern.
So, a couple issues with that. Actually, I was just watching something with my kids, and I don't know exactly why it was on. I'm trying to remember what the reason was, but the Munich Olympics was one of the first times that they televised live some of the situations that happened when they took some hostages. And what happened in that incident, what we've learned is that if we have live feeds to things, especially tactical situations, then the bad guys can see those too. And in that situation, what happened was they saw all of the police coming to help those hostages, and the bad guys knew exactly where the police were and exactly what they were doing. We now try to have a relationship with the media wherein we ask them if we have a tactical situation, please do not have live feeds to what's going on here, because it puts the hostages at risk and it puts our police officers at risk because they can see us starting to approach the building or taking different tactical aspects of what we're doing. So we would not want a live feed for those very reasons.
Thank you.
Gentleman back there, and
I was just going to ask, in light of the department's shortages in manpower, how cost effective is implementing a drone program at this time? How much would it cost the city of San Jose? Who's fronting the bill? And furthermore, I've heard a lot of arguments in terms of the need for the drone program, but I still am not entirely convinced of the viability or the overriding need for drones on American soil. I remain unconvinced. I'd like to have a little more of a take and cost effectiveness.
So a couple of things, for others who couldn't hear, Captain Porter's suffering from that head cold that's going on, so he said he couldn't hear. First question was, how much money is it going to cost? And with the shortages that we have and that kind of thing, is it worth the money that we're spending? Well, the UAS was just under $7,000. And that includes, like Captain Porter talked about, parts that if anything happened, if one of the rotors hit something or something like that, that we can replace those parts at least one time, that if we had to, we could replace it one time. So the cost was just under $7,000. Some interviews that I've done with the media, they say, well, what about the people that are going to have to be, are going to get extra people to do this? Well, no, it's our bomb technicians that are already in place. So it's just really another tool that those bomb technicians would utilize if they felt the need in that kind of a situation, or if our MERGE or SWAT commander decided that we needed it because there was a life in danger in an active shooter or something like that. So really there's not any more cost to the police department other than buying this for the $7,000, because we're not adding new people. There's some cost to the training, where if it's 40 hours of training, some of the things the FAA has described is it might be they have to go to some sort of ground school or actually become pilots so they understand FAA. Obviously, that would be a longer period of time, so what are we paying for there? We're paying for them to be sitting in that school when they could be doing other things. So really, that's the cost.
And how many drones would you be putting in the air? Just 1, 2, 3?
We just have, we've procured one drone, and at this point, for what we're suggesting, we only need one drone.
One.
Did you have a second part?
Oh, yeah, the second part was, what is the overriding need for these drones? to
Okay,
be-
that's right.
What is
Thank
the
you.
overarching need for
My kids are teasing me as I get older and I can't remember. So the second aspect to that is that the uses we are suggesting is, and I think Captain Porter touched on this in the front end, is if I have a device that I think might be an explosive device, then I can do several things. I can have a police officer, a human being, approach that thing in those big green outfits that you've seen before, and now they have to get close to it. And even though they wear that big green outfit, it can still kill them if we have an explosion that goes on. So a lot of times we use robots that we can move up to it, but sometimes those robots can't get to this device. So really all this is it's a device that doesn't have to go on the ground. Sometimes those things will fall on their side, and then we can't use them anymore. This, we'd be able to move in the air, to hover over it, so that they can look from a distance at what's going on. So for example, if there was something in here, I don't know how hard it would be, if they could fly a drone in here to look at the device while they were out in the parking lot after we've evacuated everything, it gives them the distance. So it offers my officers the ability to be much safer in that situation. The second suggested use is if we have some sort of a situation wherein somebody's life is in danger because somebody's armed themselves or something like that, and now we're trying to locate this person. I can send police officers in there to try to find them, and depending on the situation, we might be doing that, but this might offer us another tool that if we think they're in a certain area, if I can send this over to hover, maybe they can see exactly where this person is, so I don't now have to send my officers in there where if the person's armed, that they might be shot or anything else like that, wherein they could suffer some serious injury. So those are the two uses that we're suggesting, and I believe it offers a great protection for the officers to use in those given situations.
So in general, the idea is that it be a sparsely used tool of law enforcement, just in the extreme cases in which you need to use it, not necessarily everyday use.
So, yes, so the question was, it would just be used in our idea for those sparsely times that law enforcement decided that it would be used instead of everyday use. I appreciate that, because here's what I think has happened. When we hear the word drone and we start having this discussion, what do we all start thinking of? We all start thinking of the big weaponized devices that are flying over the battlefield, right? And that's what we're thinking of. Are we having those here? We also think of these things flying all over the place. Somebody had mentioned that the police department's going to be watching everything that everybody does. No, that's absolutely not what we're suggesting in either one of those cases. But that's the discussion that starts to come up. We talked about our resources. Even if I had 100 drones, I don't have the resources to put those up, to be watching people and doing those kinds of things. That's not something that I'm interested in doing. I'm as interested in protecting civil rights as everybody in this room, because I want to make sure that anything that my officers are doing are complying with the laws of this country. And quite frankly, we know that there have been times in the past when civil rights have been violated by different government groups, and we have no interest in doing anything like that, don't want to do that, and want to use it in these very limited circumstances.
If I could just add a little quick, our sergeant's not here. What he says is just another tool for my toolbox. Might use it right away, might not use it for a year and a half. It's just another tool for his toolbox.
All right, ma'am, and then you'll be next, and then in the back.
Okay, so my name's Patty, and I just want to give my input. I do have one question, and the question is, could it be possibly used for fire and rescue at some point? Which would be, I could see how it would be very beneficial.
Other departments are doing that, and if that was going to be done, some for surveying, in Napa, they went over the buildings to see the structures, that would have to fall under those divisions or departments that deal with that. that would not be something, nor would we use it for that right now because it's not in our suggested policies.
I think it'd be a great idea. I'm actually very supportive of this. I think anything that's going to save a life, I mean, you guys are out there risking your lives and the way that things are going right now and things that are starting to happen, you know, over in Paris, and you never know what's going to happen. As crime starts to progress, we kind of have to start to progress with our technology on how we're going to fight the crime. And I think it's becoming more and more dangerous for the humans to be out there taking care of it. And I think it's actually, to me, it's a great idea to actually get out there and know that you guys have some sort of resources and that you are working on the tools.
I'll touch too on the search and rescue. Obviously, there's great things that it could be used for in search and rescue. And like Captain Porter's talking about up in Napa after the earthquake, they used it to, you know, if this building had some issues during the earthquake, they could fly it in here and see the structural liability again, so they don't have to bring humans in here and engineer it and just see, no, we shouldn't go in there, or we think that it's okay. In a search and rescue aspect, it could be useful there, but for our pilot to start, we just want to start with this. The other issue is there is going to be time that's required to train people and that kind of thing. And when we're talking about our resources, the only people that we're suggesting at this point that we're going to train would be those bomb technicians for another tool in the toolbox. So if we needed to use it for search and rescue, our bomb technicians, we have very few of them. To send them out to those kinds of incidents are not something that they regularly go out to right now. So it might be that if that were going to happen, perhaps some of the search and rescue groups would look, and I'm just brainstorming here because that's what this is all about, is kind of talking about all these ideas, that perhaps they had their own and they were trained and they had their own policies, so when they go out, they could operate their own under their limited circumstances that they would use. But that would probably, just thinking through this, my recommendation would be that they don't use the police UAS for this, but that they would have their own UAS and they would train their own people, and that would be another tool in their toolbox to go out and use it for that.
Okay, ma'am, and then the gentleman in the back, and then Robert.
Me?
Yes.
I think I heard you say that you have to return back to City Council for an expansion of the policy. And I can see where this could be a wonderful additional, like you said, tool in your toolkit. But I don't think the concern about Mission Creek will go away, and it's just part of human nature that you're going to have that anxiety. Are there plans underway that City Council would say to the chief, you are required on a certain basis to come back to us and report one, like you said, just give an incident report. This is what happened. We could do a better job if we did this. But just for the public to know that you are going to have that periodic opportunity to sort of step up and say what you think. I know that would alleviate a great deal of my concern, and I want PD to be proactive in looking at new modern tools.
Yes, that's why, you know, this pilot program is so now, and we're doing these meetings and we're going in front of the Public Safety Committee, and we're taking a year worth of data, and like we said, the log's going to mention why, where, and how, and what happened at the incident. So we will have that catalog each time, or we can just say we used it 6 times, very brief, but we will know, I mean, the public will know, and city officials will know about this incident, because we want to be transparent and show, like, hey, we thought this was great, wasn't that good, or hey, this is really good, look what he did. So we want the public to know, and we don't, so they don't think there's a mission creep, or, you know, we're going to start using it for something else without any permission or guidance at all.
And I think, how are you? I haven't seen you in a year or 2
I'm
or
good.
3.
It's very good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're a little grayer than the last time
Yes.
I saw you.
Yes. I don't know if that's a job or my 3 sons, something. That's a great point that perhaps we do an annual report out to council. You know, so I think that's something that we could suggest to council, that maybe this is something that they would require us to have, and we report out on various things. So that might be something that's, I think, a good idea to kind of talk about. I am certain that after this pilot program, there will be a report about successes or some of the challenges that we face. So maybe we would continue that on after that period of time.
Thanks.
Gentleman in the back, and then Robert.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. The woman suggested about the using it for search and rescue from the fire department, and I had not thought of that before this meeting, this moment. And, I thought that was a really great idea, and that I'm not for this program. So I figure that's a much, much safer place for this program to start at, would be the fire department and search and rescue. And so I thought that was a good idea from her. A second point was that I know you're feeling pressure from the upcoming Super Bowl coming up, and the city of Santa Clara and that whole Super Bowl process. And I just had a quick thought that it might be easier, you can count on, rely on like a federal agency to handle the drone work at the Super Bowl itself, so you would not be so pressured to have this drone in the next couple months. It would take pressure off you to just knowing that the federal government has their own police agencies that can do that drone work instead of you guys. You don't have to feel all that pressure to have this drone right away. And then my third point is that I feel that this should be a longer process where I think to make it a truly innovative program, I think the true innovation would be to have the citizenry be a part of this process. And I think this should be a fairly long process, of a year or so, where the citizens, where we have these kind of meetings for about a year and just really talk it out. And everybody can be really, really clear about where the police are coming from, where the citizens are coming from, and everybody can have a dialogue together about this. Because my question, my main question, and you kind of touched upon it, which was a relief and kind of nice, but my main question, if you could go over it again and you could hear it again, can you have a conversational dialogue about not calling this live video? I don't know why you have a block, because there was a meeting on November 12th, and you talked about it fairly openly that, you know, when you download your video, you're going to be sharing this process. And since that meeting, you have not been honest at all about that. You've come up with this language about only having a live video, and it's very hurtful, and it makes a lot of distrust, I mean major distrust, between, I think, citizens and the police. So if you kind of talked about it today, and you kind of gave a little bit of briefing, if you could go over that again, it'd be greatly appreciated. And yeah, I think by having that kind of, I think it's okay to talk about it in terms of the constitutionality of keeping recorded material, because that dialogue is going on all around America right now, and it's a pretty basic concept, and I don't think you have to fear that kind of talk, you know, about what exactly, what does it mean to keep records, keep video. So if you can go into that talk, I think it would really help this whole process.
I'm trying to keep up here. You're saying our department said we were going to use recorded video?
Well, it said, yeah, he kind of mentioned it today on the November 12th video. He said that if there was a criminal case, you know, that would constitute a circumstance.
Well, we mentioned before, we're not using it.
It's on at minute 28.
Okay, what, do you remember who said that?
The man right there.
I think that was if, in the future, if we thought it would be useful, that would be an option to consider. We're not doing that now.
And
Well, I'm upset about that. I mean, I think you've got to be really honest about it. I mean, not. It's very, very hurtful. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the program can receive with that kind of language from you. And that's all.
I'm confused. So at minute 28, I remember responding to a question about if we were recording something, but I'm not sure. I just want to understand you better. I'm not sure that I'm understanding exactly what you're asking. So are you saying that I said something contradictory to?
Well, yeah.
Can you explain that to me a little more?
Well, I'm trying to ask for a clear dialogue, and I'm not exactly sure why you pulled up the reins and you're no longer. On that November 12th meeting, you said that at minute 28 that you know, the person asked, what if a person has committed a crime? Basically what someone asked here. And you just went through it fairly casually that, you know, there's public records comments, you know, questions about it, and stuff like that. I can't
You mean
remember.
about if we had a recording, there's Public Records Act, that if we kept that data?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
And that's what I'm saying, that dialogue is going on all around, very basically.
Mr. Green, you can take it, answer the question.
Okay.
so I think what I'm hearing you ask is, well, a couple things, and I mean, I'm willing to certainly have the discussion, is in regard to if we had that recorded data, and if I'm recalling correctly the question, because it has come up, if you did keep the recorded data, could we get copies of that and that kind of thing? And I think that's what I was responding to about the Public Records Act and that kind of thing. So it's not that I'm trying to be deceptive in my answer in regard to this. We just made the decision that it would be a better process to go through the pilot to not have any of that recorded data. Because one of the concerns that we have heard is if we're keeping that recorded data, that it could be used to look at people and follow people and do those kinds of things. So that's why we decided, you know what, we really don't need it. What we want to use this thing for is to get us a real-time view of what's going on with either of these situations, and we don't have to record it. So if that would alleviate some of the concern, then we don't need to do it, so let's not do it. So that's kind of where we've gone. So I'm not trying to be deceptive in that, I know. That's just a decision that we've made so that it tries to alleviate people's concerns that we're recording it.
Can you start talking about it
Mr.
in
Breen,
terms of public records?
Mr. Breen, we've got at least a couple of 3 or 4 more
Because-
people, so why don't we come back to you after we've had, because there's a limited amount of time, and I want to make sure whoever wants to speak has a chance to speak.
Right.
But and let me address some of the other issues. When you're talking about the Super Bowl and federal agencies and that kind of thing, first let me tell you that we are the San Jose Police Department. That's in Santa Clara. That doesn't mean that if they had something and they said, hey, we have an explosive device, or we have a, God forbid, some sort of an active shooter or something going on, we know that you now have this piece of equipment, would you come and help us? All of our bomb squads in all of the Bay Area, this is how they're set up across the country, they all help each other, because they all overlap in jurisdiction. So if that call were to come out and they called us and said, can you come help us, we would go help them with that. Now, if they said, hey, we understand you have this piece of equipment, and we would like to just kind of do some surveillance, our answer to them would be, is there a bomb situation going on, or is there something where somebody's life is in danger? If they were to say no, if the state council approved this and we were moving forward at that time, we would say no, we're not going to use it for that. These are the limited times that we can use it. So I wouldn't say that there's a pressure on us right now to hurry up and get this done because of anything that's going on with the Super Bowl. So just to kind of respond.
Robert?
Yes, Robert Sandoval. My question, I have two questions. The question is this: how many calls per week, per month, per year do you get on bomb threats?
Well, I looked at the data before the meeting, and the specific category I looked at is incidents that the bomb unit is called to. That could be suspicious package, it could be powder, it could be anything, suspicious powder, anything like that. And we don't monitor by the week, we monitor by the quarter. And so the annual program management report that tracks all kinds of things for every type of people in the department, we had 110 last year.
My second question is on the question that the gentleman here asked about the length of time of 15 minutes. Would it be much more convenient for you as you're operating that drone to have a backup battery when you need it instead of bring it down, change batteries, put it back up? Okay, that's
Unfortunately, we're limited, like the chief said, we're limited by technology. Would we like a battery that lasted a half hour? Absolutely. If we had a long-range incident, it might be, well, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to put boots on the ground and go search or do whatever we do. But I agree that I'm sure we'll run into a circumstance where it's not useful. We can't leave it there. But when technology improves, like the chief said, we would love. I'm sure technicians would love to have something that would fly a little bit longer.
And this is actually a situation we don't just have with this, the helicopter. If the helicopter's been up for several hours, and now at the end of the shift something happens and they need a helicopter, the helicopter might only have a certain amount of gas left. And sometimes we have to move the helicopter off, go back to the airport to refuel, and so it can't be up. So this is, it's a situation that's come to any kind of device that we're using, and there's a limitation really with everything.
That's all my questions.
Kind of along those lines, I had a question about when a human bomb squad comes out and they like go to the bomb area, whatever the device is, approximately how long, and I know it depends on what kind of device it might be, how long does it take them typically to kind of do the research? You know, typically, because that's what I'm trying to figure, because like you said, the time, 15 minutes, is like a long time. But the human, how long does a human bomb squad person take to do the same kind of thing as this drone?
Well, I'll give you an incident where someone had a leaking phosphorus grenade brought back from Vietnam. So first thing is they evacuate the area, they bring out their tools, they go as slow as they can for safety. And so now the robot can come in the garage, and actually they can see numbers, serial numbers and stuff on the grenade. They have a book they can look through, and they can see, okay, this is what it is. It's unstable, we do not need to transport it. Or if it's something they don't recognize, they have a number with the Department of Defense they can call and try to know what type of item this is, explosive. So now they dig a hole in the front yard. So that takes a little longer. Now the robot is able to go into the garage, pick it up, bring it back out. They go very, very slow. It's set into the hole. So now the bomb technician comes out in his big suit, and unfortunately, there's nothing on the hands. There's nothing on the feet because he's got to manipulate things. So it's placed in the hole. They put the sandbags around it, run the wires out. Now they exploded the neighborhood. And so that's probably, that was 2 to 3 hours for that to happen. But now let's say the robot can't get in there. That's where possibly the drone can get in there, and they can see the same explosive numbers, serial numbers, everything on that, and bring it back out. And so, okay, now you have a better idea of what you're working
Take longer than 15 minutes.
with. No, that's a 15-minute flying time. The whole incident's going to take a long time.
Let's see, before I get back to you, someone that hasn't asked a question. Right there, Pam.
I had a question regarding the GoPro camera. Can you manipulate the GoPro camera or just the drone itself?
I believe they can zoom in. Unfortunately, we don't have a
Can you turn it and,
Yes, it does. It does have a turning mechanism on it, and I think it can tilt it a little bit. And that's something like you can go by with your GoPro if you wanted.
Then my second question was, I'm sure you must have explored other large metropolitan police departments and if they're using drones. I was curious what you found with that.
Well, once again, unfortunately, Doug's not here, but they're running in the same thing as they want clear direction from the FAA. They want better battery life, and besides that, I know of, I can't have anything more specific to speak about. And I believe they contacted Denver, Los Angeles Police Department, and Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
And so are they currently using drones or they're still building a program?
That I'm aware of, still building a program.
There are a couple of agencies that I looked at and read some literature on. I think one of them was in Colorado, a small sheriff's department in Colorado that's very rural, that's been using them for different things. And I recall another agency, it might be the same one, where they're using it to construct, like if there's a traffic accident, they put it up to take pictures of the intersection, to do that kind of thing with, so that they can use it for photography. But no, there's not a whole lot of agencies that are using it right now because they're kind of in the exploratory aspects of figuring out, there's a lot of ideas about what it could be used for, but what are the processes to use it? What are the policies that should be put in place? What concerns does the community have? They're all kind of working through the same thing. And that's what I keep getting back to is that, this is a newer technology that is going to be here in 5 years, it's going to be here. We're just kind of on the cutting edge with this and trying to figure our way through that.
Okay. Ma'am?
I have a question about the survey that I participated for the San Jose Police. Could you tell me where I might view the results?
So was that, I think the survey was through the city, not specific.
Well, it said it came from the San Jose Police Department.
Do you want to
Yeah,
say that?
a couple of different things. One is there was one of our neighborhood commissioners that's actually sent out a survey about this particular subject. It's anecdotal, it's not scientific, but he's gathering information from residents throughout the city, asking them their opinions about this. As far as an official survey about this from the city, that hasn't occurred.
Well, can I find out where the results from the commissioner?
Right, the results haven't been compiled yet. It's an active survey while we're gathering information.
So who would I go to find out? Because
That would be actually Commissioner Juan Estrada of District 5. And I'll give you my card. Send me a question, I'll give you the link to his survey.
Ernest, you might want to say that that came out of him, that was not on the basis of the neighborhood commission.
Right, it's not an official survey of the commission, but it is something that one of the commissioners has sent out.
so how would he get my email?
That I cannot answer.
This one is
So,
It's also surveillance for the youth.
send me an email. I'll get everyone that you can look at it.
If we're in a bombing situation, like they were in France, and one lady escaped, and they think she's back in Syria now. Now, this changes whether it's a local crime or a federal crime, since we're not going to allow your people to record other than in real time, and then that's it. What about the federal government? How are they going to deal with information that you could get, but you choose not to?
I think that if we have the information, then what we would do is we would verbally tell them, this is what the situation is. And if we don't have it recorded, we don't have it recorded. So we just share with them. We put the UAS up. Let's play that through a little bit. We have a situation where, in that case, I don't know if you're talking about the issue at the supermarket or the other issue when they were looking for them, but the issue at the supermarket where they had hostages, that would be one of the times that we would most likely use this to find out where they are and see if we can get any information regarding that. But if the federal government then were to conduct an investigation into what had occurred here, we would have reports about, the officers would have written reports about what they would have seen, and we'd share that with the federal government so that they could continue to do their investigation.
Okay, so that's not a recorded video.
No, we don't even have, if we wanted to, we don't have the ability to do that.
Now, the GoPro camera that you're using to identify somebody, is that good enough?
I think it's like any camera, it depends on how close it is and how good of a view we have at that time. So it could be, but a lot of times we know that we have surveillance video and all kinds of crime that we try to identify the person, and it just kind of depends. Sometimes we get a great shot of them, sometimes we get a shot that's a distance away, or they're not looking at the camera or whatever else. It kind of depends on, and playing that through too. That, just in any kind of criminal investigation, what we have to do with that photo then is we have to kind of put it out there and see if people know who this person is that committed this robbery, for example. And so in that case, it depends on if somebody sees them and they recognize them. So that's, I guess, to answer your question, it just kind of depends on how good the photo is when we take it.
And you know what, that reminded me something that I didn't touch on, because I was thinking in low light conditions, we will not fly this thing at night. Daytime only, not before midnight.
Okay, Matt. Commissioner Walton.
criteria at which you would say at the end of this pilot program, this hasn't been useful, this isn't ready for prime time yet? Has there been any discussion of that? Because it's obviously new technology, and they turn out to be more effort than it's worth.
But we agree, that's why it's a one-year pilot program. And, you know, there's all these theoretical discussions in the law enforcement community, the pilot community, you know, the drone community, is we really don't know in the future. Like I said, we might use this, our technicians might say, hey, we thought this was a panacea, it's not. Or they might say, this is really good, we have some other suggestions. And then we have the procedure in place where we go in front of the city, you know, entities and then discuss it where they get more public input like we're doing now, and then move on to the city council type of process that we've showed you.
Because I think it will be very important at the end of the pilot period to be able to say, comparatively speaking, if we haven't had this, did this help make us safer? How do you sort of?
So, just a couple of comments, I guess. I envision that when we're done with the pilot program, that we're going to have a report and go back to council or one of the commissions and say this is what we have or have not used it for. But one of the things that we struggle with in law enforcement is that clearly in the hard sciences, it's oftentimes easy to prove that A happened because of B or it didn't happen because of B. In law enforcement, oftentimes, we don't know what efficacy we've had as far as stopping something from happening. Because if it didn't happen, we can't show that it otherwise would have occurred. But it could have been that because a police car was driving by the bank at this time, somebody decided not to rob it. Well, we'll never know that. And so oftentimes it's hard for us to say that because something didn't occur, it's hard for us to quantify that. So in this case, if we were to use this device, was it beneficial for us? Those are things that we'll talk about, you know, that it was beneficial, or, you know, we used it these 2 times, and really we had to go back up there and look again, so we had to have somebody actually walk up to it on these 3 occasions, but maybe on this 1 occasion it worked very well. So it's hard for us to quantify because in these 3 occasions, you know what, we tried to use it, but we ended up having to walk up there to it anyway. Is that a failure for this, wherein the one time it was it was great that we had it. And oftentimes in law enforcement, if we have that one other tool that just helps us a little bit with a situation that might protect somebody's life or even injury, then oftentimes what we will say is, hey, we just have that tool in the toolbox and it was worth it that one time, that it really does help. So sometimes it's hard for us to quantify all of these things together.
Believe me, the people using it will let us know if they like it or not. We'll be very, very vocal about that.
Okay, you're next, and then you're next, and Lady way in the back will be next time.
I just have a couple of questions about the GoPro camera. Does it have light capability for dark spaces? I know you won't fly it at night, but if it were a dark indoor building or something, would you be able to turn on a light? I know it does like have a headlight. And does it have audio capability?
Fortunately, our subject matter expert's not here. I do not believe it has a light unless, I don't know anything about pro cameras.
I don't know.
So I don't know if someone could say if they come with lights, then maybe it does. And as far as, I don't believe we'll be able to hear on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know my son's GoPro has sound on it, so I think probably this does.
I know
Does
my
anybody have a
son's-
GoPro?
My son's GoPro drone actually
But
does have.
the issue with that is, you know, it has the 8 rotors on it, that it's not going to be a pure acoustical device because you're going to hear the engine and all those points going.
Right.
It makes a pretty good buzz, so I think that would probably counteract any kind of sound.
I was just thinking more like on the lines of search and rescue if somebody were dealing with it.
And I wanted to comment too on the nighttime use. The reason that we're not suggesting nighttime use is because the FAA have said they don't want these to be used at nighttime. Now, if the FAA were to say that it could be used at nighttime, I mean, you know, like right now, we know it gets dark at 5 o'clock at night, right? Some of these situations could happen at nighttime. So if that wasn't a restriction that the FAA said that we could use it at nighttime, it would still be within these 2 circumstances that we would suggest that it be used. So really that's an FAA guideline right now, and when we finally come out with those, if that were not one of the restrictions, it might be that it would be used in those situations too. But it would be very limited because we have to have line of sight. We have to be able to see it, which is also an FAA regulation. So we're still kind of waiting for those regulations to come out.
Yes, when will the pilot program be evaluated? When will it, what is the duration of the pilot program?
If we obtain approval through city council, it would depend, the next step is we need to get the operators certified, and the FAA has to come up with a program to do that. So even in April, if city council says, okay, it's approved, we will probably not be ready to use it yet, because we have those hurdles on the legal standards and the operating standards.
Okay, so let's assume that it is approved. So will you use like 6 months or a year?
1 year. We're suggesting a 1 year.
1 year project. Okay, and then you did say that the FAA doesn't approve for night usage, but flying doesn't wait for daylight. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having the device available if you cannot use it at night. How?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, but if that's their rule, that's the rule that we will follow.
Because to me, it seems to me that if something is going on where there is a potential bomb and it is nighttime, you will have to call an officer. You will have to call a human being, a police person. And wouldn't it make sense to have the drone there? Because actually, the drone is actually doing the job of a police person that will be there assessing the situation. But it doesn't make sense to only have it during the day, where at night you will have to actually put in danger this person.
So, you know, I'm in agreement with you, but it's just like any sporting event. If the rules of that sporting event are that you can or can't do something, you have to abide by those rules for that sporting event. So it's the same with this, except now we're talking about legal issues and regulation. If the FAA tells us we can't fly it at night, we're going to abide by those regulations and we're not going to fly it at night. And the reason is, I think, where it might be useful for us in those situations that you're describing, I think probably the reason they want that is because of, again, going back to the concern about the airspace, that if it's up in the air and there's other aircraft up there and we have all these things flying around at nighttime and they might have little blinky lights but they're not as bright as they need to be, it could cause a danger to the aircraft. And I think that's why that's what the FAA is recommending. It's more for the airspace than it is that it could be useful for us in a government capacity, because remember, we're just talking about this little area concerning the government that private industry is really pushing to use this for all kinds of things, and I think they don't want all these flying around at nighttime when other aircraft couldn't see. I think that's probably what they're thinking.
Because the way I think is, if something does happen at night, and I have to call the police, they will have to come anyway. So what is the difference of, I mean, what's the use of having the drone if not going to be available?
Well, ma'am, I'm talking to other people that have their personal drones, that nighttime is very difficult to see. And so that's another safety concern.
So you would need more equipment with the drone, is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is people that are flying them now, you know, people that buy their own and stuff, they say, you know, and they tell them the same, FAA says same thing, don't fly at night. And when they've experimented with it, it's very difficult to see. So we obviously don't want it crashing, and we're not going to buy, we're not going to go beyond FAA regulations, but the operators say it's very difficult to use it.
Because of power lines, they can't see power lines.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, lady in the back.
Hi, I have a couple questions. So, has there been a specific instance in the past where, if you had this drone, it would have been useful to use it? My second question is, suppose in an active shooter situation, if the drone was shot at, could it be easily destroyed? Would it be in that close proximity? And then my third question was, is there a possibility in the future that you might purchase another drone?
Well, as far as purchasing another drone, we would have to go an additional drone, or say we crashed it and we couldn't repair it. We either let's just say we accidentally destroyed it or it crashed, then that would be a fiscal consideration, and we would have to deal with that within our department if we wanted to spend the money to replace that one. An additional one, we would go through this process with the neighborhood commission and work our way up through the committees and have to prove why we need another one. And then it would be through city council and mayor once again to say, okay, you can get one, but we would go through the same process that we have with the neighborhood commission. And we would not even approach that until our 1-year pilot period is over.
And then in regard to your other two questions, if we had a situation, could somebody shoot at it? Certainly anything's possible. I think, quite frankly, though, it would, I mean, would it wreck it if somebody shot it? Yes. And so that's certainly a consideration. And then finally, specific instance in the past. I'm sure that there have been times, and I know maybe Captain Porter has a specific time he can think of, that had we had that tool in the toolbox and the bomb technician said, hey, this might be useful to use in this case, would that have been something that's useful? I think probably the answer is yes. In 110 situations in a year that they might have utilized it so that they didn't have to approach it, or maybe something happened with the robot or something like that. I don't have, because I don't do this, and Sergeant Wedge isn't here, but I'm sure that there were some times in the past that it probably would have been another tool in the toolbox that could have been used.
So we've had quite a few questions, and some people have asked a couple twice. Are there any other folks out here that would haven't had a chance? Yes, ma'am.
I came in late, so I apologize if I'm repeating. What is the bottom line cost for the drone and the equipment that you use to receive the picture and so forth?
Just under $7,000 for the UAS, and that included parts that if, like, one of the rotors hit something, we needed to replace parts, that we could replace most of the parts on at one time.
Thank you.
Yes, gentleman in the back.
Your risk analysis, what did you come out to be the greatest risk with the implementation of this equipment?
I don't know that we said what is the greatest risk. I think certainly there's there's different things that could potentially happen. Is that what you're talking about? Like if it stopped operating and it came down?
Well, sure. Any type of product you want to do some sort of risk analysis. If this happens, what is the risk to life and limb?
So I guess that's one possibility. Is if it stopped functioning, could it fall on the ground?
It does have a retrieval system. If it's going to go out too far and the signal from the operator gets weak, it will turn and come back. Mm-hmm. Or if the battery gives it a 3-minute shelf life or whatever, it'll automatically come back towards the signal.
I really don't think that. I mean, of course, there's risk with anything, but I don't think there is a lot of risk in these limited uses that we're talking about. I mean, if we have a situation where there's a potential explosive device, usually we control that area anyway, and so we're going over from where we already control, from where that bomb technician is, and go over to that area. And if we had an active shooter, it's the same kind of situation. So was there anything in mind specifically that you had thought of?
No, I was wondering what you had thought of.
Okay.
You thought a lot more about this than I have.
Yeah. So they said they would not fly over large crowds.
No, we said we had to go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
We'd fly over them. We wouldn't hover above and look at the crowd. So point A to point B, but not to be used to observe the crowd.
I thought you also said that you didn't want to have it over if it might fall on.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the operator's going to have to evaluate how long that would take to get over and get back, and if there's a situation like that, he's not positive, then we would not do that.
Gentlemen?
I think that having the drone and going through the procedure that you're doing, I think it's a really good thing. I think it's a great addition to the toolkit for you guys to help protect us. I was just sitting there thinking of a scenario where this robot, I haven't actually seen the police robot, I've seen some on TV where they have treads and they're very limited in where they can go. And if you took a bomb and stuck it up in an elevated place or a place where this robot couldn't go, this drone could. I'm all in favor of it. I think it's a great tool. And for the amount of money, $7,000 in peanuts, to save one person from being hurt, let alone killed. So I think it's good. I'm glad you're doing this presentation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 30 minutes, and like with any good meeting, you have all you want to say. We can always end early. Any closing comments or thoughts from the audience before we let you get on with the rest of your Saturday? This is a very, very nice closing comment.
Okay, I have a question of Nick Lawat, District 10, I'm on the Neighborhoods Commission as Commissioner. I just wanted to get an idea from the audience how you feel about the process of having the SUV put together the policy that they're proposing and coming to the public to get the kind of outreach and feedback from the public that we're not receiving. How do you feel about that? Because I should hands, is this a positive thing? Is this a negative thing? So it's a positive thing. So if I can sort of get it looks like very much like 90% of the folks think it's a positive. Who thinks it's negative? That it's not a good thing that the SUVD is coming to the public. Okay.
They're not doing that. I think that you need to ask the question a little differently. They're not doing enough, basically. I mean, this is a start, but it's not.
Fair. Very good. So I just want to get that feeling so we understand it as a body, Neighborhoods Commission, we're doing our proper outreach to the community.
Okay.
So thank you.
I don't think that we should also forget that the media and the community are part of the impetus that caused this rebellion. So let's not forget that. The community spoke and the media helped inform us so that we knew what was going on, something we looked at and not as well.
Great.
Is there going to be a follow-up or anything after this?
There is going to be, I'll make a quick comment and I'll turn it over to Linda. There's going to be a fourth and final community meeting at the east side of San Jose sometime in February. I'm looking to probably set up a date, third week of February. We'll be sending announcements within the next week or so, once I pin that down. And then we'll notify folks so that, as Judy said, media, press releases, other things have been very helpful in getting people out here and educated. So stay tuned for that information.
I just wanted to let you know too that we have information posted on both the police department's website as well as City of San Jose's website. If you go to sanjoseca.gov/UAS, you'll find this PowerPoint presentation there as well as additional information. And we'll continue to update it throughout the process. So if you're wondering when the next meeting is, or if you'd like to come to the next commission meeting or city council meeting, we will have that information there as well. And again, thank you all for coming.
So let's have a round of applause for that. Enjoy your Saturday.
No action minutes from November. I saw